Hello, greetings. My name is Jackson Vunganye. Over the last 17 years, one of the topics that we have discussed in depth is Africa's digital transformation. We speak with industry experts, with analysts, but most importantly, my favorite demo is young tech entrepreneurs around the continent. Now, we have been around to witness the rapid growth of the digital economy on the continent and how it continues to improve millions of people's lives, especially the youth. You know, Africa has the youngest population in the world, and that can also be leveraged to build a more dynamic digital workforce that will drive innovation, economic development, and growth around the continent. Chat that I had with a world-renowned Moroccan tech entrepreneur, Khalid, who was recently in the US to visit some tech companies. And we did talk about, some issues around digital transformation, privacy rights, and things of that nature. Let's check it out. So let's talk a little bit about this International Visitor Leadership program that you just completed in the US. What differences did you notice between the digital economy in the US and in Morocco? Were there any specific technologies or practices that you encountered in the US that you believe could be beneficial for Morocco's digital economy?
So I'm Khalid Machchate. I have been an entrepreneur for almost 15 years now. I've been particularly focused on how do we make technology better, and how do we use that technology for the embetterment of the world. I built my first software when I was 11. It was a biology course made more fun for students and more interactive, and it went viral in the span of 6 months. And so that's what made me understand that technology was going to change a lot of things, and it was going to be able to create much bigger impact in a much shorter time frame, which is what got me interested into it in the first place. Today, after 15 years, we're over 500 folks working on digital transformation for clients in over 70 countries. We do everything from developing solutions for big corporates and governments to training folks on how to be a leader in the digital age, and to recommending products and policies regarding how to integrate technologies, what's the ethics around it, and what kind of regulations need to be implemented in order for it to bring as much positive impact around. So obviously, the US has more of a lot of advance on the IP development side, so intellectual property, and so there's a lot of new technological innovations that are coming out of the US that Morocco would, definitely use in e-government services, in telemedicine, for example, or e-health solutions, educational technologies, financial technologies as well. So all of these things that we saw would have an interest in being implemented in Morocco. Obviously, it needs more context, and it needs to be more adapted to the local market. Just for information, Morocco has a very low banking ratio, so people that have bank accounts, and so financial solutions need to go through mobile wallets and all these solutions that are more adapted for an African country. But on the other side, we have also a regulation stance difference. So for Morocco, we're more following of the European model of having a GDPR-like policy and regulation that's different from the US's approach, which is to let innovation happen first, and then if regulation has to happen, only it happens for very extreme cases. And so this kind of philosophical difference in approach to innovation and to technology makes a big difference in what technologies we can have versus the ones that we can't, or that would need a lot more work from our policymakers in order to be implemented.
Right, and how you can stay current and compete on the global market, I guess,
Yep,
without all these
indeed.
restrictions. Let's talk a little bit about security. I know this morning we had an issue globally. We just talked a little bit about it, but security is a major concern in the digital economy. What measures would you recommend, or do you think that are crucial for ensuring cybersecurity in Morocco? And how can the country balance, I guess, openness and security in its digital economy to as it helps innovation, but also protecting its users?
Sure thing. So we have quite a robust agency on the the privacy concerns, but when it regards to how companies use data of individuals and of consumers. But that being said, on the cybersecurity side, I just was reading a report yesterday that says that over 66% of organizations have had a cybersecurity attack in the past year. And so this is the reality today, and it has been ramping up quite massively, along with generative AI supporting and facilitating for phishing attacks. A lot of the language barriers that used to happen from for attackers that were coming out of places where English wasn't the first language or French wasn't the first language. Now with generative AI, they can make perfectly passable emails that don't have as many errors, and so that can trick a lot more people. And so all of this for me comes down to two things. One, on the government side, is how do you protect the sovereignty of your sensitive data? And that's the only thing that governments should focus on protecting from a data accessibility standpoint. So you need to have well-protected servers within the country that protect sensitive data for government and for the citizens, but all the rest needs to just be within services that are known to be well done, well structured, and that can protect the rest of the data for marketing use, for sales use, and whatever other non-sensitive data there is. The second is actually more to the citizens and to the people, which is how do you have better we call it cyber hygiene or data hygiene, which is what do you do with your
Security
passwords,
protocols.
how long they are, how they are structured, not using the same password over and over again,
Mm.
changing it from now and then, not clicking on links that you receive in emails from people that you don't know, not clicking on on WhatsApp messages that you get from people that you think you know but you don't know the number of. All of these things, and it's getting ridiculous at this point. There like one of my former companies where I worked. I received a message from the COO, the picture, the name, everything on WhatsApp, and it was a phishing attack. Somebody spoofed the number of the COO and started sending to all the managing directors of the different branches. So let me tell you, it's getting sophisticated. So people need to really make sure that, if somebody sent you a message, just call them. Look up the number in your phone and call them. Are you sending me this message? Yes, no. So just make sure that you don't get these kind of phishing attacks, because technically they are responsible for over 90% of successful cyber attacks.
What do you see as the biggest challenges facing tech entrepreneurs in Morocco? Advice from you as a person who has been part of this, process for so many years, you built companies that have been successful, and what opportunities do you see for the growth of Morocco's digital economy in the next few years? I guess the kind of advice you'd give to young entrepreneurs who are trying to get into the space. What are some of the things that should look out for?
Um, the advice that I would give to entrepreneurs in Morocco and in Africa in general is to think global before you act local. So when you start your endeavor or your company or your product and service, do not think that your local economy will be your first and main target, especially for countries that are of small market like Morocco, like Tunisia, like 80% of Morocco of Africa's countries are not sizable enough to justify targeting only the local market. The exceptions are South Africa,
Africa.
Kenya, Nigeria, and Egypt from a number standpoint. Ethiopia has a large enough number, but doesn't have enough,
Penetration, I
open
guess.
regulations for entrepreneurship. So let's just be clear on this. You need to think that you're going to be serving more than your country. Otherwise, you're going to be a lifestyle business. So let's get that off the get-go. The second would be to understand your market's realities and understand your clients before going into developing the tech. We are, I've been, let's say I made that mistake multiple times before learning my lesson, which is building the tech and thinking people will come for it. That's not how it works. You need to find your niche in the market. You need to find what problem people need solved and understand how they want it solved, not just finding a solution on your own and thinking that that's what people need. And thirdly and lastly, we are in emerging markets. We are in developing countries. You need also to understand that when you're telling your story to VCs and to investors, how do you approach them? You're not an American-based company. How do you get proper valuation for your product or service? How do you tell your story in a way that facilitates you accessing investment? The VC market in Africa is extremely small compared to most of the other markets. So how do you convince global VCs to invest in your company that's based out of Africa? Couple of directions in there. Understand that you need to be flexible in relocating your headquarters, but with your mission staying intact, which is serving Africa and serving your particular market. Where your headquarters are is not a problem and shouldn't be a problem for you. Second, the first message I said, which is be global, it needs to transpire through your message, through your pitch decks, through your pitches to VCs. It's very clear we are not just in this market. We are working on different markets across Africa and across the world so that there is enough scale for VCs to be interested. These are obviously, again, as you said, I've been supporting entrepreneurs for over a decade. I have a lot more to say, but for the sake of time, I'll stop there.
I want to catch you a little bit on VC. I guess when we're closing off, I've been, I guess, hearing or reading in places where they say, I think the first when we met in I think it was 2017 or 2019
yep,
when we met in
yeah.
Casablanca. There was certain excitement among the VC community targeting African tech entrepreneurs, but in the last year or so, I've been hearing that there's less interest.
Yes.
Is that what you're getting, and what could be the cause of that?
I mean, right now we're in a funding winter almost everywhere. And so Africa is the least performing market, unfortunately, for VCs. And let's be clear about this. It's just because Africa is the youngest market where the VC activity has been. The excitement that we saw, in those years where we met was because literally there was no VC in Africa, and everybody was thinking this is an untapped opportunity. But from there to now, there isn't enough of time to judge the VC returns. It has been like 5 or 6 years, which is only sufficient for like one fund cycle for smaller funds. So basically, we don't have enough banging success stories in Africa or that come out of African VC to encourage investors, especially in a funding winter, to still bet on African companies right now. So basically, if when they had a lot of money, they were diversifying and putting some of it in Africa as like a diversification tactic or as an emerging market tactic. Right now, everybody's pockets are tighter, and so they're refocusing on what they know best and where the VC returns have proved to be the biggest. So my conclusion for that is we really need to have African VCs come out the woodworks. We need to have African high net worth individuals stop investing just in real estate and starting to invest in entrepreneurs in order for, we're the only ones that can solve our problems ultimately. And so that needs to be right now the focus and the call to arms in the continent.
Khalid, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us today. Happy Friday. It was good to see you, man.
Amir, take care of yourself, brother. And it was such a pleasure reconnecting again.
Absolutely.
See you soon.